Good afternoon. Happy Fermented Friday. Thank you for tuning in for another one of our wonderful episodes where we talk to breweries and brewery owners and brewery representatives and brewers and everybody you can imagine from breweries around the state here in Maryland. Today we're going to be joined by Mike Clements of Idiom Brewing Company in Frederick. Got a lot to talk about. He's been part of some really cool collaborations recently. He's the mind behind the Brew for BAM collaborative effort that you've been seeing us post about or seeing some of our other members post about. So we're excited to chat about that. But before we get into it, just want to remind everybody that Maryland's breweries are open for limited business right now. Curbside carryout pickup is still an option at most breweries throughout the state. Many breweries are offering delivery of their beer, and some breweries even are still allowing you to come in and sit indoors along with their great physical distancing plans and your mask. So please make sure you're safe. Make sure you're doing everything that you can to support Maryland's breweries and get out there and enjoy some great beer. Also, before we get started, I do want to let everybody know if you don't get our newsletter, we posted today about the fact that tomorrow, Saturday, is National Mead Day. And we actually have a few mead makers that are part of BAM as members, and they will be offering some great meads this weekend. Check out the Buzz Meadery. Check out Charm City Mead Works and Maryland Mead Works. They're both all wonderful mead makers, have some great products out there. And if you don't drink mead usually, give it a try. It's a great day to celebrate. All right. Well, without any further ado, I'm going to bring Mike in. Mike, how you doing, bud?
What's going on, buddy?
Great to see you.
You too.
Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it very much.
No worries.
Been busy the last few weeks. I've been popping in to chat with you every once in a while, and every time I do, you're like hucking it in the brewery. You've got a whole lot going on, and you've been keeping things going. So why don't you talk a little bit about what Idiom's been up to, where you came from, and then we can jump into some of these great movements that you're working with.
Sure. So, I mean, we've been working on a lot. During the whole COVID-19 pandemic, we just kept, going at it. We kept brewing new beer. We never really took a step back and reevaluated where we were. We just said we were going to go with it and hope for the best, and it kind of worked out for us. We were already canning beer. We were already doing some limited distribution. So when all of this happened, it was easy for us to kind of just continue down the path. We had our own canning line lined up. It wasn't here yet. We had enlisted the help of Ironheart Canning Company for mobile canning for a few runs when all this started, and we were selling out from those runs within a couple days, sometimes in a couple hours. So we were extremely busy backfilling our fermenters. We actually had 4 more fermenters delivered during COVID-19 to help kind of level out how much we were working and how often we were working. And, it's just been a pretty good experience for us. All of the stuff that's happening during COVID-19 is terrible stuff. But we've actually had a good bit of growth since then. And it's just been something that we are appreciative of, and appreciative of our customers and our guests for, dedicating their dollars toward beer that we're brewing. So it's definitely been helpful, and it's definitely been humbling.
Right as all of this was starting to kick off, you were just coming to the tail end of an expansion project too, weren't you?
Yeah, we actually had an expansion project that just wrapped up and one that just started. So, we were just starting work on an event space upstairs from our new expansion. There was a piece of the property that the landlord was looking to get rid of, and we were able to work out a favorable deal on it. So we took on that in February, and then started work on it in February, and then all this started happening in March. And so we kind of, just kept going with it, kept working on our expansion plans, kept moving forward with our outdoor seating area, and just kind of we were hoping that, we would make it through to the end and see all of these things come to fruition and, help us grow.
So let's take a couple of steps back, because I don't know that everybody who tunes into this may know the story behind your brewery and how you decided to open a brewery in Frederick. Can you go ahead and kind of let people know your background and what got you into the industry?
Sure. So I used to work for the federal government. I worked for the Library of Congress for a number of years. And during that stint with the government, I had been visiting friends and trying craft beer really for the first time 12, 15 years ago. Going out to Portland, Oregon, hanging with friends, hitting every brewery out in Portland. Brewed a batch of beer with a friend of mine out there during a trip 15 years ago, and just fell in love with the whole scientific aspect of brewing, the water chemistry, the hop profiles, enzymatic, activity from, yeast interaction with malt, and just fell in love and came home and started brewing beer in my basement, and just kept chugging away at it. Brewed for a number of years before deciding that I was going to open a brewery. My wife was behind me the whole time. She kept pushing me to follow this. We decided that we were going to try to open a brewery in Urbana, Maryland, a number of years ago. The county zoning was a little funky. So, unless you were in an industrial park like Flying Dog or owned, acreage to open a farm brewery, you were kind of, stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so we started looking around. We looked in Mount Airy. We looked in Frederick. We had identified the location we're at now a few years ago, but it just wasn't in the cards at the time because the developer was still working on outfitting the building, and so we just kept looking, couldn't find anything we really loved. Kept hitting roadblocks because of landlords not wanting to have food, not wanting to have a lot of parking dedicated to a brewery. So it worked out that by the time this building was ready to be leased, we were ready to move. And we moved in April of 2018 and started work on the facility. Opened up November 2018 to a huge crowd of people, and have been chugging away ever since. Most of our name recognition came from events like the Craft Beer Festival on Carroll Creek a few years ago, where we kind of put ourselves out there, let people taste our beer, got feedback from people, saw what they liked, what they didn't like, and kind of grew from there. And that's kind of everything is in history now. We're an established brewery, a little less than 2 years old. We're continuing to see growth. We're actually actively looking for a production facility to open up a 15-barrel brew house with some 15-barrel and 30-barrel tanks. We're actually possibly even going to look at doing 20 and 40, so a 20-barrel brew house with a bunch of 40-barrel tanks. So it's just been exponential growth. People seem to be digging what we're doing. They like the vibe here. And we just, like I said, very grateful for being able to provide beer and people enjoy it.
You've got a very good team of people that work there with you as well. Your staff and your tasting room and your production side are all good, community-minded people that are recognized by folks downtown. So when they're coming through, they see a friend behind the bar, they see a friend working in the brewery, and that's always really kind of a cool thing because it draws the community in. It makes it feel like it's part of their space too.
I mean, we selected a number of people that have been known in the community. John Burroughs is a cellarman here, assistant brewer. He's very well known. He's a likable guy. Everybody likes hanging out with Johnny Blue Jeans, and he's been a great asset to have. Same thing with our taproom manager, Lindsay Hamilton. She came from Vintage. She's great. She works well with people. She's great with the social media. She likes to, try to work out new events and stuff like that. So it's just been, great opportunity to bring these kind of people on board.
I think you mentioned something really interesting when you were talking about kind of you had your eye on that space, and then kind of through timing, I know development there got hung up left and right for different things. But it's nice that you weren't dead set on that space. One of the pitfalls that we tend to hear is, oh man, I really wanted that space as a brewery. And then they get in and there's something wrong with the space. It's not going to work. And it sounds like you were able to have that time looking for other places to really solidify what you wanted out of the business. And
yeah,
to like tailor based on your landlord's wants or anything like that.
Yeah, it also gave us a lot of bargaining room with the landlord to kind of, identify what we needed to see, in the space, and give us time to figure out what our requirements were for, gas piping, electrical, all these things. And by doing that and having that amount of time, we were able to kind of jump through a lot of the hoops that a lot of newer breweries run into where, we got into a space and, we don't have enough water. We don't have enough, throughput on electricity. We're going to have to upgrade this. We're going to have to upgrade that. We were able to go in front of the landlord and say, hey, listen, for us to even move into this space, here is a full list of things that you need to provide us. And, we're willing to pay, X amount of rent for it. Just we want it all to be done when we come in.
So when you walk in the door, it's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. Even though we still had all of our equipment issues, our refrigeration, our glycol, all of our, brew house stuff with the gas piping, all that kind of stuff, we still had to do. Everything else was, covered by, tenant improvement dollars that the landlord was throwing our way to kind of woo us to come into the space.
You weren't making any retrofit to the construction or anything like that, though.
No, not at all. In fact, a lot of the stuff that you see in the building was specifically put in for us, like the mechanical platform in the roof was specifically put in and engineered into the drawings, so that way it could support our 10-ton HVAC unit plus our 5-ton our 5-ton glycol system, as well as our refrigeration for our walk-in box and other HVAC work that we were going to put into expansions, which we had planned during the opening. So we were already actively trying to negotiate the expansion when we opened in November of 2018. So it was already, all stuff that was steamrolled into a long-term plan. And, with the advent of this new event space we have upstairs, it'll give us a little bit of a dedicated private event space for small parties up to 50 people, which, we'll be able to serve beer, wine, and liquor because it's outside of our tap room space and it's outside of our production space from the state. So it allows us to have a little bit more flexibility with what we can serve people, and allows them to have a little bit more flexibility in booking events at Idiom.
For people that aren't too familiar with the layout of downtown Frederick, Idiom's located right along Carroll Creek, kind of on the east side of the Carroll Creek linear park, which for a number of years didn't see a whole lot of foot traffic, didn't see a whole lot of people getting past that East Street barrier. Once Attaboy opened, it kind of opened up the beer destination down that way, and now there are several breweries down east of that East Street location. How's that vibe working out with that great little anchor for breweries down there?
I mean, it's great. Everyone does something a little bit different. Everyone has a completely different vibe. Shout out to everyone down here. I mean, everyone's doing their thing. Steinhardt's about to open up here in the next couple of weeks, from what I hear. He focuses on Belgian beer, and Smoketown's across the creek, directly across the creek from us. They focus on traditional styles or traditionally brewed beer. Attaboy kind of is in line a little bit closer to what we do, but they also tend toward a little bit of the lighter side of beer and New England's. We tend to go the darker side of beer and New England's plus sours. So it's kind of a little bit of the best of all the breweries down here, and it's becoming this destination that people can come to and hang out all day and not even have to leave the creek. So it's been awesome.
I'm so excited to see the continued growth. When I started in the Frederick beer scene, there were only 4 breweries in the city. And it was one of those deals where we were all sitting there going, man, we could support 7, 8, 9 more breweries in this town. There's just so much ability to get really good beer out to the people. So it's great to see that it continues to flourish and that Frederick really is growing to meet the desire of the beer fan. And you're right. Everybody is offering an environment that's a little different. The approach to beer is a little bit different. And that was going to bring up the question that I wanted to ask. What you said that when you were kind of showcasing what Idiom was going to be to prospective guests, because you weren't all the way open yet, you were garnering feedback from them about what they wanted to see. And in my experience buying beer from you and coming in and visiting, it doesn't look like you have a whole staple of beers that you're sticking to. There's not a big core group of beers. You guys really like to go out there and try new stuff all the time. How is that motivated? Is it motivated solely by what you're hearing from your guests, or is it just you guys have this whimsy and you want to try new stuff?
Well, one, I like to experiment a lot. I also take feedback from my staff as well about what they would like to see, what kind of beer they love, and what kind of beer they want us to brew, as well as the customers and the guests. But deep down, it's the experimental side of me growing up as a home brewer in the brewing industry. And, I always wanted to try new styles. I always want to try new hops. I always want to try new hop combos. They don't always, make instant hits. But at the same time, unless you push your boundaries, how do you know where your limits are? So we don't go crazy on, highly adjuncted stouts. We don't go crazy on super fruited sours. We still like to have beer that tastes like beer and have some flavor profiles that fall in some of the categories that other breweries are following. Our main core is about balanced beer, and it's about pushing the edges of what we know and what we love. But we still, at the end of the day, want it to taste like beer. So that's really where it will pop up.
Well, I think balance is a great thing to try to achieve. And the more of these that we do, these Fermented Friday talks, or we're talking to the brewers and the owners of breweries, it's a very consistent theme that, hey, what we want to drink is great. We definitely want to hear what our staff wants to drink. But ultimately, we're not going to brew it if it's not something that we think is going to maintain some level of balance and really introduce the guests to a good experience. So,
yeah, I mean, like I said, we have a lot of beer that we try as an experiment, and people love it. There's a few that don't necessarily hit the mark all the time, but that's part of growing. That's part of learning. And, we're going to take that feedback, good or bad, and grow from it.
That's awesome. So we kind of started this whole thing off talking about where you've been in the last few months since kind of the world came to an end due to this COVID-19 crisis. There have been a couple of really big news stories aside from that that have kind of brought communities together. Obviously, the George Floyd situation and the response to that nationally, and the response and the understanding that people are not being treated justly in this country has been brought to the forefront. So starting with COVID-19, you guys got involved with a collaboration through Other Half called All Together. You're part of the Black is Beautiful collaborations trying to raise awareness for these injustices. And you've decided to put your philanthropic hat on even more and do something to help benefit the Brewers Association. All of these causes are backed by your brewery doing something that not only is a public statement about where your beliefs are, but also where you think your dollars are best spent as a member of the community. Can you tell us a little bit about why you got involved with each of these things and what you want to see out of them?
Sure. Let's start in the beginning. So, COVID-19 hit. Breweries were still kind of, dealing with being open, but not knowing how to react to the whole situation. And then everything got shut down. And during that shutdown, Other Half decided that they were going to push forward a collaborative effort for anyone to join and, raise money for the hospitality industry, to kind of offset losses that individuals were seeing, who work for the hospitality industry. And, we were fortunate enough that we didn't have any of our staff that was laid off during COVID-19. We stayed pretty busy with delivery and carry out and, all of the canning work we were doing and all of the, distribution we were doing. So, we decided that we were going to join into this effort, and we were going to actually do glassware as well and sell the glassware and try to make more money than what we could have just off the beer. So we decided we were going to brew the Altogether beer. We decided we were going to donate 50% of the proceeds from the beer to the local community. We joined in on the Cheers for Charity drive and basically donated all the money, or 50% of the profits from the Altogether beer, to that charity, as well as 100% of the profits from the glassware that was sold for the Altogether beer as well. So at the end of the day, we donated $6,000 to Cheers for Charity, and that money was split up and set aside for each of the breweries in Frederick. Whether that brewery decided to take the money or not was up to them. And there were a couple breweries who didn't take the money. There was one brewery who actually donated their share to another brewery, and that money was distributed across all of those individuals. So I think at the end of the day, it was like closer to $9,000 that was donated from Cheers for Charity and the Altogether beer that we did, plus the glassware, to other Frederick City breweries.
That's awesome.
Which was, I think most of the breweries had given it to staff that stuck around during, the whole pandemic, and, not having hours, not having tips shared, and kind of just split it up as they saw fit for their business.
So a couple of weeks after that whole thing wrapped up, and it was, pretty quick that our focus went from one disease in the form of a virus to another in the form of how people get treated here. We have a brewery out of Texas come up with this wonderful plan to kind of bring the argument to the people that, we need to make sure that the community of craft beer not only does the right thing, but is also open to everybody. And they rolled out the Black is Beautiful collaboration. What inspired you to get involved there?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone should be treated fairly. Everyone should, be treated like a human being. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I don't ever want to be in a position in my life that I get treated unfairly just because of the color of my skin, or my, ancestral background. I can understand completely how anyone else would feel about that. So, we decided to put our money where our mouth was and show, just what it meant to us. And we decided to brew this beer. We reached out to Weathered Souls within a couple of days of hearing about this. We have 2 members of our staff who, have friends that live out in Texas and deal with Weathered Souls, and they put us in touch with them and, got the ball rolling. We had brewed the beer within, I think 3 days of, saying that we were going to be brewing the beer. So we made room in our time schedule and made room in our brew schedule to do it. And then it's kind of odd, because McClintock Distilling in Frederick contacted me and asked us to brew a beer for them as well, because they wanted to distill it. And I, advised Braden at the time that we had already brewed it, but I'd be happy to send him what we had brewed, so that way they could just make a distillation from it and do a cacao infused spirit, and we would just rebrew the beer again and put it in cans at a later time, which is what we did. So we brewed the beer twice, once for distillation and once for, distribution / taproom sales to kind of raise money and awareness. And I believe McClintock is selling theirs or putting it out for distribution and sale next week. We canned our Black is Beautiful yesterday, and it's actually for sale on draft and cans at our tap room. And Downtown Crown was the only place that we put cases of it out in Montgomery County, and they have about 5 cases to sell at Downtown Crown. Since we don't really have a presence in Montgomery County, we felt like it was best to put something out there and let people pick it up there too.
Who are the beneficiaries that you're going to be working with for sales on that?
So 100% of the proceeds is going to the ACLU of Maryland.
That's awesome. If you have not heard about the Black is Beautiful collaboration yet, please check that out, blackisbeautiful.beer. It's a really great global collaboration at this point. We have, I think last time I checked, there were 20 or 21 countries involved or represented by breweries that were being involved with this. We have, right now, we're pushing like 21 or 22 breweries and distilleries, including McClintock in the state of Maryland. So that's great. And go out there and show some support. The beers that are coming out have been wonderful. Some of our breweries have already released theirs. Some are still coming up, and some were released yesterday. Or today, I guess, to the public, right?
Yeah, to the public today. Yesterday was for VIP.
And if you're on Facebook, Chris Sands just put a note in that McClintock will be releasing their Spirit next Thursday. Speaking of Chris Sands and speaking to you, the idea to give back and to help the community has not stopped with those two efforts. You and I sat down a couple of weeks ago, and you told me about this idea you had for Brew for BAM. We've had a couple of other breweries, True Respite and Smoketown, have done some fundraisers for the association through individual beer sales. You kind of conceptualized the way for the breweries in the association to see if they could make up some lost space from our lack of events this year. Why don't you tell people about Brew for BAM and what the goal is there?
Sure. So, I came up with this crazy idea with all these collaborations happening during COVID and happening, to kind of promote, ideas and agendas. We decided that, since the Brewers Association was hit pretty hard. This all started right about the time that everyone was getting ramped up for the Maryland Craft Beer Festival. No one knew what was going to happen with that. Eventually it was canceled. All that lost revenue, which is a big chunk of BAM's revenue for the year, is gone. There are other events that BAM had to cancel because of all of this. And, I believe the first person I reached out to was you. I was like, I got a crazy idea. What do you think? And, we just thought that it would be, we already, as association members, we already pay dues. We already promote BAM as association members. But I thought that it would be best for us to promote BAM, and let people really understand what BAM really does outside of just being somebody in the background who helps us when we need it and, pushes forward legislation about the things that breweries want to have happen. BAM is an important factor for me. Everyone in BAM has been extremely helpful to me every time I've had questions about legal issues, insight into, the things that we need to look out for as a brewery, social media, those types of things. So, BAM, has a retainer with Grow and Fortify, which, is does, work for not only BAM, but also does it for the Distillers Guild, and the wineries as well. And, I was concerned that the staff from BAM and you yourself, Abby, everyone would, potentially lose their job because, there's no money. There's a lack of funds to continue to promote the brewery's agendas. And with that means that lack of funds to promote agenda means lack of funds to have staffing to promote those agendas. So, I reached out to a few breweries I knew that we've done collaborations with that we have solid relationships with, and said, hey, here's an idea. How many of you would be involved? And yeah, at first it was a slow process because we were still trying to figure out how this would look and feel. We were discussing multiple different style guidelines for beer. We were discussing, whether or not, what the requirements were for donation. We were discussing, whether or not there would be a common template for can designs, whether there would be, a common theming for communication and that kind of stuff. And at first we were, kind of sold on doing, a two-way beer styling. So we were looking at doing a base beer with certain hops that could be used as either a lager or an ale. And, after multiple discussions and getting, even more and more people involved, we sat down and talked, and we thought that every brewery is different. Every brewery has different goals. Every brewery has different styles that they hit home. Why try to force people into doing something that they're not comfortable with, or that they, would do but may not have the best results for? So we just decided that, everyone should just brew for BAM, whatever they want to, whatever way they wanted to. The whole point of it was to make money and help BAM survive this year. And hopefully, COVID is over after this year. But, the whole point is to kind of, hopefully. The point is to help BAM survive this at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, when everything is done and all the chips have been laid down, we're all going to need BAM more than ever, because a lot of things have happened during COVID that allowed us to stay open, allowed us to stay relevant. And without those things continuing after all this is over, there might be even more closures. There might be breweries, wineries, and distilleries that have problems because they're trying to switch their revenue streams back to a model that may not work anymore. And so it was just a no-brainer to get Brendan from True Respite, Cindy from Mully's, Hysteria, Ty involved, Dan from Full Tilt. We just decided that this was the best we can do at this point in time, and everyone's going to donate at least 30% of the profits from whatever they sell, whether it's cans or whether it's growlers or draft only, to the Brewers Association to help offset their losses for the year.
Well, I can tell you on behalf of the staff at BAM, the association is entirely grateful for this this movement and this effort, and we've always wondered, kind of quietly, how much of an impact all of this work makes to the public. And I think that the fact that our members want to stand up and ensure that BAM is an existing organization at the end of this says a lot about the value that you find in it. There's sometimes that feeling, oh, I should join the trade association because it's what everybody in the business does. But it's a whole other thing when we realize that all the members really find all the value they can out of what work is done on your behalf. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, you guys have always been helpful to us when we've had questions. I know other breweries, especially startups, have lots of questions, and I'm sure some of them are, seem like they're rudimentary questions at times, and stuff that people can find pretty quickly if they spend the time. But a lot of these people, already are, going 15,000 different directions, and when they can get a quick answer from somebody and quick information from their association, it just makes a world of difference.
Well, to keep the spirit of collaboration going, I'm actually enjoying the Brew for BAM release from Saints Row and Waradaka right now. If you haven't seen the artwork for these, Brew for BAM, you'll find that tag on just about every one of the cans coming out. We were actually invited to go to the Crooked Crab and Firm Brewing. They're a brewery startup, but we got a chance to go to their collaborative brew the other day. They're super excited about their release coming at the end of August. I know your release is in the works. So I hope that I get the invite to come and take pictures of you guys while you're busy doing that.
Absolutely.
But I'd also like to give a big shout out to Chris Sands at the Uncapped podcast for his help with this effort. He got the website going, and Hop Havoc for making some hops available to members at discounted rates. I think it's great. You're doing everything you can to make this as easy as possible for any brewery in the state who wants to participate. So we definitely appreciate it. We've got a lot of people sending their thanks in from our team. Kelly sending you some lovely kissy faces saying thank you for your efforts. And Abby is a huge fan. On the backside, we're in stream chat right now, or I'm sorry, our Slack chat right now, and Jana's super stoked on this too. So we just want you to know how much we appreciate it and all the hard work you guys are doing. And to any of our other members who are involved that are listening, our love is not just to Mike. We love all of you, and thank you very much for all of the hard work you do.
Yeah, check it out, brewforbam.beer.
Yeah, brewforbam.beer. We've got a number of breweries involved there, more breweries coming on almost every day, and we're excited about it. So thanks again for that. And let's talk about what you guys do best. I mean, you're pretty kick-ass at this collaborative stuff and giving back to the community, but I think you really excel at brewing beer. So why don't you tell us about what you've got going on and some of your favorite beers that you pulled for today?
Sure. So phrase number 9 is a iterative edition of a New England IPA. So it's pretty hazy, juicy New England IPA. This rendition is Meridian, Mosaic, and Strata hops. Super juicy, lots of pineapple notes, some good spun sugar in the background, and then some dank, like berry flavors from the Mosaic. Very hazy, very thick, very full-bodied, but not super slick, not overly sweet. And it's just what I like to see and what most people tell us they like to see of the kind of hazy beer we do. So that again is on draft and in cans right now. I believe we were talking about Black is Beautiful as well today. We just canned this yesterday. So Black is Beautiful. Our rendition is a Imperial Oat Stout. It's a 9% ABV. We followed their Weathered Souls recipe pretty thoroughly, except for a couple areas. So they were pretty heavy on black malt versus chocolate malt. So we kind of swapped the two. We went heavier on chocolate malt and a little bit less on the black malt, just to give it a little less of an acrid, roasty flavor. We also changed the flaked oats out for oat malt to give it a little bit more of a full mouthfeel, but not feeling just kind of fluffy. And then we also kicked out the addition of dextrose that they added to kind of thin out the beer and give it a little bit more alcohol but less body. So ours is very high in the body, more on the chocolate side, a little decadent but not overly bitter or overly sweet.
So you actually got a little bit more extract out of the oat malt than you would have from the flaked oat.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just swapped that out to give it a little bit more extract and a little bit less of the fluffy side of oats, more of that, body, but not the super soft body. So it made it a little bit more, made the chocolate side a little bit more pronounced rather than being
a little more lush and cakey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man, you're talking my language now.
So we went with that for Black is Beautiful. I think we talked about going with What Goes Around as our third beer. So What Goes Around is a rotating, like What Goes Around, rotating Goza recipe that we swap out the fruit and we swap out the salt additions to give a little bit of a different vibe every time. And this edition, we went with strawberry and key lime. So it's a super summery drink. It's 4.8% alcohol. Lots of wild strawberry. Lots. I mean, it's got a lot of strawberry. It also has a considerable amount of key lime, and also modified the body perception on this one by mashing a little bit warmer. And swapping out some of our our typical water profile for something a little bit more soft. So a little bit more calcium, a little bit lower sulfate level, and high on the fruit, high in the salt. We went with pink Himalayan salt on this one, and it's a treat. Just canned it today. Feedback so far has been amazing. A couple people I've talked to, have said it's the best strawberry rendition of a sour they've ever tried before, and it's just one of those beers that you could sit down and drink all day by the pool.
Tell me a little bit about how you guys are making your variations on salt. I've seen all of the kettle soured options and goza options out there, mixed fruit and all that kind of stuff, but I've not seen many people say we're approaching each one with a different salt.
Yeah, so we're looking at, every time we do a goza, we swap out the salt, whether it be French gray salts, pink Himalayan salts, kosher salt, table salt. There's thousands of salts out there, and we've been kind of playing with salt additions to kind of identify what salts have a more pronounced flavor, which ones have a much more subtle flavor, which ones meld a little bit more with certain fruits, and we can push the threshold a little bit with a little bit higher on salt with more subtle salinity salts, because it's not so pronounced in your face. We can push it a little farther, and people may not know that it's as salty as it is, and we're still getting that salinity into the beer. So it's a perception issue. We're trying to play with it to kind of see if we can identify, and so far we've been able to talk to customers who have been able to identify where we're pushing the boundaries with the salt, and where some of the salts seem to be playing very well with the flavor profiles. We just did a couple weeks ago a watermelon version of this beer with French gray sea salt, which went really fast. We sold out in a 24-hour period, and we did a 7-barrel batch of it. It was gone. This rendition, like I said, is strawberry lime and key lime and pink Himalayan. We have another version of this coming out probably in a month. I'll leave what kind of beer it's going to be off for right now. So people follow our social media, they can see what that's all about.
Very cool. And you said wild strawberries. Where are you getting those?
So wild strawberries, actually, we have a concentrate company we deal with out of Illinois, and they have they do IQF, they do puree, they do concentrates, they do like 4-time concentrates, all kinds of stuff. So we're looking around for strawberries, and typical garden strawberries, they're pretty bland. They don't have a lot of flavor profile to them. You have to use a lot of garden strawberries to kind of get a flavor across. So when we found out that one of our suppliers had wild strawberries, organic in fact, that we could get from them, we reached out and got enough for a 7-barrel batch. Quite expensive, but it was worth it. I mean, the flavor profile is super pronounced on the strawberry side. The key lime melds well with it, and then adding the salt addition just makes it a perfect playground for a beer. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what I'm hearing from my experience with most gozas and key lime and strawberries is that you're adding layers of tartness on here that are all going to be wonderful when I get smacked in the mouth with the salt.
And they all have different, they all have different levels of tartness too. So, I mean, you can definitely, as the beer is crossing your tongue, you can
feel a change.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can taste all the different profiles because they all hit you in different spots of the mouth. Especially the salt on the finish, as it's going down, it basically pulls out all that sour and leaves you wanting to, do it again. So it's just a great style. I love gozas. One of my favorites to drink. If I had to drink a beer all day long, it would definitely be a sour. I don't know if many people would think that from me because we do so many New England IPAs, but my favorite styles are sours. I love kettle sours. I love fruited sours. I'm big on, defined lactic acid flavors. I'm not so big on, more of the traditional Yeah, barrel aged sours and breaded sours and things of that nature, because those flavor profiles just aren't for me. However, kettle sours, I drink them all day long. I don't have a lot of the same kind of problems with stomach acid issues that some people get from them. So I guess I can handle them. But I know a number of people who are like, man, I can drink half a glass and I can't do it anymore. And
Yeah,
it's just not me. But I mean, kettle sours are one of my favorites. New England's are right behind it. Stouts are right behind that. So those are the three wheelhouses we usually follow. And porters and stouts to me are kind of interchangeable. Those are the three wheelhouses we fall in as far as beer goes, and we typically gravitate around those styles and throw in some Belgians here and there, some German beers here and there, and just kind of go with our gut. We brew with our gut every day. We don't have a plan 6 months out of what's going to be in tanks. You can ask Johnny Blue Jeans. We come in on a Monday morning and John's like, what are we brewing today? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me go look at what we got in grain. And we kind of go look around and we say, all right, we have all this stuff to do X, Y, and Z for this week. And that's where the plan comes from.
That's a refreshing way, I think, when you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Let's hope you can maintain that when you're trying to fill all those 40s.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
You might actually have to start planning a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, and, we don't do core styles, too many core styles either. So or core beers, I should say. So making a transition to doing some distribution doesn't necessarily mean we have to follow the core style or core beer mentality. In fact, I think that we'll probably kick that to the curb and just continue to experiment, both at our existing facility and at whatever production facility we decide to open.
That's awesome. I think that's a great model. The ability to really be nimble and be flexible about what you're doing. It gives you a lot of freedom and creativity, and that's one of the things that we hear from everybody that we've talked to on these Friday chats. Is this artistic license is something that cannot be stressed enough, and it's part of what makes this industry so fun for the people involved.
Yep.
And I think you had one more beer you were going to talk to us about.
I did. I didn't bring it with me, but it's called Worlds Between. It is actually an American IPA, which, we don't do too many of the clear beer things, but we do them from time to time. It's a West Coast-ish IPA with Sabro and Simcoe hops. So it's super fruity, but also super bitter and very, pungent. It's got a lot of aroma. In your face beer, lots of coconut, tangerine flavors. That dankness from Simcoe helps back it up as a traditional West Coast. And it's just a palate crusher, but also one that you can continue to drink beer after beer. So it's not like a crippling West Coast where you drink one and you can't do it anymore and you have to move on to something else. While it does hit your tongue and it does attack you, it's something that leaves you with a clean and crisp, dry finish. And that hop profile with the Sabro helps give it that juice finish on it that helps bring you back for a little bit more.
Just enough to wash out that astringency, and that's great.
Yep.
So what do you have? You kind of gave us the big news right up front that you're still expanding what's going on there. You're looking for a new production space, but in the next couple of weeks, what do you have on the menu for great ideas that you see coming out?
So next week we're canning another 3 beers. We did 4 this week, 3 next week. So 3 next week is a blackberry and lime sour called Got the Mojo. We've done this before, but this will be the first time we can it. We have an Arnold Palmer sour that's lemon and tea with lactose. So it's just enough lactose to sweeten it like it was a lemon tea mix. And that's in tank right now and will be canned next week. And then we have a beer called Catch Heat. It is a double IPA with pineapple and habanero. So that's coming out next week as well. Behind that, we have Generational Gap, which is our flagship New England IPA with Nelson Sauvin hops and Grungeist hops. And then we have a new double New England that we're piloting called Lost in the Mist. And it is an 8.6% double New England with Citra, Idaho 7, Galaxy, and we're working out the fourth hop, but we have an idea that it's going to be Strata. So we'll see how that one turns out. And, we are doing our first seltzer here at Idiom. It's in tank right now. We'll be canning that as well. The first rendition is going to be a raspberry lemonade version. It's called Burst or Bubble. We'll continue to navigate whether we're going to move forward with doing seltzers after we see how our guests and our customers like this first version.
Do you intend for that to be a draft offering there, or do you see that going into cans maybe?
Burst or Bubble will be canned.
Cool.
I think we'll be the first in Frederick to can a seltzer. And funny because it'll be our first seltzer that we can. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I know Kushwa has done it recently. Actually, that's not true. Rockwell put out a seltzer, I believe it was a blackberry seltzer in cans a couple weeks ago. We're looking to get into it. We kind of pushed back on it for a while, but at the same time, we've been looking for ways to make a gluten-free option available to our customers. And, the current climate is all about seltzers. So, while we could do, barrel-aged cider, or we could do, a traditional, fermented cider, we just decided that maybe it's worthwhile investigating and seeing how it goes. And I think we'll, based upon what happens, we'll see. We might keep one seltzer on at all times.
Very cool. It'll be a nice offering for your guests sitting out there next to the creek too.
Yeah. A little dry, a little crisp, a little, flavoring going on. We plan to use all natural purees with these seltzers. So, and plan to do some carbon filtering on them to clean them up really well. It's going to be interesting to see how they play with the customers.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see what your feedback is on that. It's very interesting. The more and more I'm reading about what's going on in the market, and we see reports from big breweries, national brands that do have seltzer in their profiles, and they're like, man, if it weren't for seltzer right now, we don't know what we'd be doing. So fortunately they don't have, or unfortunately they don't have the freedom and license to do the quick, nimble reaction that you guys have to be able to, shift to carry out and delivery and all those kinds of interesting things, and be able to release new beers every week. So for them to have something that is kind of buoying them is nice.
We've been fortunate enough to have a Brewers Association fighting for us pretty hard. So, and then also, Governor Hogan has been, very in front of this. He's, looking at, how this affects all the businesses in Maryland, and it's refreshing to see somebody really understand, what is needed to continue to push business forward even during this kind of time.
Yeah, and all of that help from the governor is backed up by a comptroller that believes in the industry and does everything that he can to make sure that our breweries and our businesses here in the state stay thriving and are able to continue doing what they do best, which is make Marylanders happy with the stuff that they make. So, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. I might see you in a few minutes.
Absolutely, buddy.
In person, and I'll have my mask on.
It's right here.
There you go. Wish everybody there well for me. Thank you very much for what you're doing with Brew for BAM. Can't wait to tell more people about that. It's gone out in our newsletters the last couple of weeks. And when you're ready to brew yours, I will be there with bells on to take pictures and maybe drink a beer with you.
Sounds good, buddy. It looks like we're going to be doing it on Monday. So
sounds like I have a plan for Monday.
Okay, there you go.
And just so everybody can be a little more jealous, I can walk to Mike's place in about 5 minutes from my house. So it works out real well. Thanks. Have a safe weekend. And to everybody that's watching, if you would like to help support the Brewers Association of Maryland and our efforts, check out what we're doing at marylandbeer.org. Make sure you visit Idiom at their website, which is
idiombrewing.com.
And follow them on social media. They have great social media on Facebook and Instagram. If you're watching us on Facebook right now, check out our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow some subscribers over there. We do broadcast these live on YouTube as well. And we have an option for folks to make a contribution directly to the Brewers Association if they feel fit. BAM has a paypal.me/sofasippin' from our spring event donation page set up. So paypal.me/sofasippin', or just purchase as many of the Brew for BAM releases as you can and show your support that way. Thank you all very much for supporting Maryland beer. Stay safe, and we will see you next week. Mike, have a great one.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.